From attacking a whole bus of people to straight up throwing an opponent off stage, the UFC is no stranger to insane controversies. So let's take a look at some of the most unbelievable ones. Starting with Conor McGregor's bus attack. In 2018, the feud between Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov was at a boiling point. It was all about to hit the fan, and boy did things get crazy. The drama started when Khabib and some of his teammates decided to confront Artem Lobov, a training partner of McGregor's, over some comments he made about a potential fight between Khabib and the Irishman. The confrontation wasn't exactly friendly, and let's just say it didn't end with a group hug. Next thing you know, McGregor and his group are on a plane to Brooklyn. They show up at the Barclays Arena and decide to attack a bus carrying Khabib and some of his teammates. Yeah, you heard that right. They attacked a bus. McGregor even launched a metal dolly at the bus, shattering one of its windows. Talk about a temper tantrum. The incident was so insane that Al La Quinta, who was on the bus, compared it to a terrorist attack. Can you blame him? People were getting hurt left and right. Lobov was kicked off the card, and Michael Chiesa and Ray Borg were also forced to pull out of their fights due to injuries from the broken glass. As for McGregor, he ended up with 3 counts of assault and 1 count of criminal mischief. He eventually pleaded no contest and got stuck with 5 days of community service. Wow, what a punishment! But hey, this one just involved a smallish group of people.
Here now. No.
Colby Covington insulted a whole country. Back in 2017, Covington was just another wrestler in the UFC's welterweight division, grinding out victories but not really making any waves. But then he went and fought Brazilian legend Demian Maia in Sao Paulo, and things got a little crazy. After Covington won the fight, he went on a rant about Brazil, calling it a dump and the fans filthy animals. And let me tell you, the fans did not take kindly to that. They started booing and throwing trash into the octagon, trying to hit Covington on his way out. But this guy wasn't backing down. He refused to apologize and even doubled down, apologizing to filthy animals for comparing them to the people of Sao Paulo. The dude has some serious balls. The UFC had to put security around Covington's hotel because the fans were so angry, and they had to change the location of his next fight because of safety concerns. But instead of toning it down, Covington leaned into his controversial persona, going on more and more tirades and even throwing in some Trump-inspired rhetoric. It was not okay. Kind of like Paul Daly's sucker punch. It was 2010 and Daly was on the cusp of a welterweight title shot. All he had to do was get through Josh Koscheck at UFC 113. But Koscheck, being the grappler that he is, used his wrestling to defeat Daly and earn a clear-cut decision victory. And that's when things got crazy. Daly, not liking Koscheck's style or his post-fight trash talk, decided to take matters into his own hands. Literally. As Koscheck celebrated his victory, Daly rushed him from behind and sucker punched him right in the face. Referee Dan Murgliata had to restrain him before he could throw any more punches, but the damage had already been done. No one had ever seen anything like it in MMA before. This sport is all about respect and professionalism, and Daly's actions went against everything it stands for. And UFC President Dana White wasn't having any of it. He released Daly from the promotion immediately, and he's never been back. It's a shame, really, because Daly was a talented striker with a lot of potential. But he let his emotions get the best of him, and he paid the price for it. Now he's a cautionary tale for all fighters. Don't let your anger get in the way of your career, especially not at an event. Yep, I'm talking about the UFC 229 post-fight brawl. If you thought the trash talking before Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov's UFC lightweight title fight was wild, just wait until you hear what went down afterwards. The notorious one was forced to tap out in the 4th round after Nurmagomedov put him in a vicious neck crank. But the Dagestani didn't stop there. Nope, he decided it was time to take out his frustrations on McGregor's training partner, Dylan Dennis. So Khabib did what any sane person would do. He scaled the octagon fence and he leaped into the crowd like a superhero. But instead of saving anyone, he went straight for Danis like a man possessed. Meanwhile, McGregor was in a scuffle with Nurmagomedov's cornermen, UFC fighters Abubakar Nurmagomedov and Zubaira Tukhugov. It was pure chaos, and security had to step in and try and separate the fighters. Eventually, the brawl died down, but not before the Nevada State Athletic Commission suspended all of the involved parties for their part in the debacle. UFC President Dana White was so disgusted by the whole thing that he refused to present Nurmagomedov with his title belt. I mean, can you blame him? The whole thing was like a bad episode of Jerry Springer. But even that was kinda tame when you compare it to the UFC 178 press conference brawl. Back in 2014, Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier almost turned a press conference into a WWE match. During the press conference, Jones leaned forward a bit too much for Cormier's liking. And the next thing you know, DC is shoving the champ like he's trying to push him off of a cliff. Jones, not one to back down, responds by throwing a barrage of punches, causing Cormier to stumble back and the two of them to fall off the stage. But wait, it gets even crazier. UFC exec Dave Scholler gets caught up in the madness and falls off the stage too, like a bowling pin in a hurricane. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more wild, Cormier chucks his shoe at Jones like it's a grenade, missing him completely and hitting a poor innocent reporter instead. Needless to say, the whole thing was a complete disaster. But surprisingly, there were no real consequences for the two fighters. They eventually faced off at UFC 182, and while it was a highly anticipated fight, it probably didn't have the same level of intensity as it would have if the brawl had never happened. All we can say is, thank goodness for security. Otherwise, who knows what else could have gone down at that press conference. But even the top people in the business aren't immune to controversy. Remember when Dana White got in trouble for using anti-gay language? Back in 2009, the UFC was on top of the world. But that didn't stop UFC President Dana White from going absolutely ballistic on MMA journalist Loretta Hunt and one of her sources. White was apparently none too pleased with an article that criticized the UFC's treatment of managers. And he let his feelings be known in a profanity-laced rant that was so intense it would make even Gordon Ramsay blush. But the real kicker? White dropped an anti-gay slur that had the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation up in arms. The whole thing was a total mess, and eventually, GLAAD was successful in getting White to apologize for his language, although he never did say sorry to Hunt herself. And while the incident has largely been forgotten by fans in the years since, it remains a dark stain on the UFC's history. And that's a wrap for the biggest controversies in UFC history.